Hey everyone. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the Stukent simulation, and I'm going to walk through a couple of rounds of the simulation with you. And what I'm going to focus on is the mechanics of the simulation, in the sense how the simulation is set up and what are the things that you need to do to move along into the next round and complete the simulation. Now, the mechanics of the simulation is one thing, which is completing the simulation. But how do you do better in the simulation? So how do you know what you are doing in the simulation that is going to yield you better results? So I'm going to focus on the mechanics, and I'm going to focus on how to do better in the Stukent simulation. Right now, as the name suggests, Stukent Mimic Pro simulation, right? It's mimic because it's trying to mimic something, which is basically here in this case is trying to mimic Google's ad. So by understanding how the Stukent Mimic Pro works, by analyzing the results from the Mimic Pro simulation that you have done and going over the multiple rounds of the Mimic Pro simulation, you should have a really good idea of how Google Ads work, right? And then this should help you when you are going to create your own Google Ads in real life, right? So Mimic Pro is very helpful in that regards. Now let's just take a look at the first round, right? So first you have to watch a video and then you reach the first round. In terms of the mechanics, you know that on the left hand side there are a bunch of things, and for you to move to the next round, where you have to review and submit, you have to get tick marks on all of this, which is basically you have to complete all the things that are required for the simulation, and then only it will allow you to move into the next round, right? So the first thing that we see here is it's giving you the scenario where you look at what is the Kent's Camera Castle situation right now. It has generated a revenue of 4,100 from its online business, out of which 479, around approximately 10% is profit. They sold 8 products and there were 94,000 visits. So there were 94,000 visitors to the website, but they only sold 8, which is not a really good conversion rate, right? So you need to keep all of those terms in mind as well. So conversion rate is how many people converted out of how many people visited, and we see that the conversion rate here is not that really good. Now it also shows here that the source of traffic was direct, so people typed in Kent's Camera Castle directly in the URL and they reached the website. So direct versus referral, where there were some other people who were posting links, right, and then they clicked on that link to reach our website. Now email, we have an email campaign as well. So the email campaign also got a number of visitors to our website, and of course, as we see here, paid is 0 because that's what we are trying to set up in the Mimic Pro, right? Now before we move on to the next steps, I need you to understand a few things about how Google Ads work and consequently how Mimic Pro also works, right? So this is trying to understand the structure of how Google Ads is set up. So let's take a look at that. So in terms of how the account is structured, Google accounts are structured in different layers, right? You can think of this as your computer and the folders within your computer, right? So you have a folder that you create for a specific purpose. Within the folder you will have subfolders, multiple subfolders, and within that subfolders you might have other folders or you might have files, right? But you create folders so that it makes it easy for you to find files whenever you want to find the files that you want to find, right? And similarly, Google Ads is also set up in the same way, because if you are a company that is selling hundreds of products, for each of those products you are creating advertisements, then you will not know where the ads are, right? So it will be very chaotic. So Google is providing you a structure so that you can set things up to make it easy for you to find where things are. Just like you create folders and subfolders in computer, you are going to create campaigns and ad groups in Google Ads, right? So the AdWords is structured in the following way. The first and the highest level is account. So generally, each email address is associated with an account. So if you are a business and you have one email address, then you will only have one account. Now within that account, there are the possibility of creating multiple campaigns, right? So each campaign that you create is kind of like the folder that you are creating within your computer. So one of the ways you can use the campaigns is by setting it up to represent a product category. So for example, let's say you are JCPenney, right? So if you are JCPenney, then JCPenney will have one account. Now within that account, JCPenney has multiple products. There are hundreds of products that they are selling. Now one way to categorize those products would be in terms of product categories. So JCPenney, what they might be doing is they will create product categories, let's say men's formal wear, men's casual wear, right? And women's formal wear, women's casual wear, kids, girls, boys, right? And then big and tall, and then they might also have makeup, right? So all of those are different product categories that exist within JCPenney. Now what JCPenney could do is JCPenney could create the campaigns associated with each of those product category. Now let's say that the men's formal wear is one product category, then there is one campaign for that particular product category. For kids, boys, there is another campaign. For kids, girl, there is another campaign. So you can create multiple campaigns within the account, and this is something that you will be doing in the Stukent simulation as well. Now within each campaign there will be multiple ad groups. Now because men's formal wear, there are multiple products that you are selling within that particular product category. So what you will be doing is you will be setting up ad groups for each of the product that you are selling. Now let's take a look at how it works in terms of the actual advertisements that you create. So here you can see that there is an account level. Within an account there will be multiple campaigns. We see here one campaign, right? So this is someone who is also selling fruit. This is a business that's also selling fruit, right? So within the fruit campaign, which is a product category, you are selling multiple products, right? So you are selling apples and you are selling oranges. So within one campaign you can create multiple ad groups, and each ad group is associated with the product that you are trying to sell. Because you are trying to sell apple and you named your ad group as apple. Now you can name your ad groups and your campaigns whatever you like, and I have had students who named it whatever, right? Or they named it round 1, round 2. But the problem associated with that is this naming is going to help you to figure out what product you are selling. Now because this ad group is named apple, you know that the advertisement and this particular ad group is trying to sell apple. Because the campaign is named fruit, you know that this campaign is trying to sell fruit. But if you name it randomly, then it will make it very, very difficult for you. Once you start selling more than a couple of items, it will be very, very difficult for you to keep track of what is happening, right? And that is why what you should be doing is you should be trying to name those appropriately. And here you can see fruits and apples, they are named appropriately. Now within a campaign you can create multiple ad groups, and each ad group is generally set up to sell a particular product. So here we can see that in this particular ad group is created an advertisement for apple, right? And another thing associated with ad group is keywords. So when you are buying keywords, you are buying keywords for a specific ad group. Now since this ad group is about apple, you generally will buy keywords that are relevant to apple. Now this ad group is about oranges, so you will buy keywords that are relevant to oranges. And then you will create advertisements that are relevant to the product that you are selling, right? So another thing that you need to keep in mind is generally when you are buying keywords, you cannot buy the same keyword for multiple ad groups within the same campaign. So if you bought here the red apple for the ad groups apple, you cannot buy the red apples keyword for the ad groups of oranges. Now this is not a problem here, but it might be problematic to you later on when you are trying to sell cameras, is that let's say you want to buy the keyword DSLR camera, right? Now you are selling Canon as well as Nikon. So if you put Canon ad group and Nikon ad group within the same campaign, then you cannot use the keyword DSLR camera for both the ad group, and you will have to decide for which ad group you want to use the DSLR camera. One way to get out of this predicament is to create a separate campaign. If you create a separate campaign, then you will be able to buy the keyword again. But the problem when you are buying the same keywords for multiple advertisement for yourself is that your ads are going to compete against each other. So buying appropriate keyword is very, very important. And another thing associated with campaign is when you set up the budget, you have to set it up at the campaign level, and we'll talk about it once we start the simulation as well. But for now, you need to understand how the account is structured for Google AdWords as well as the Stukent simulation. Now let's take a look at not the mechanics of how things work, but what are the things that are important for you to do well in the simulation. The first thing that is very, very important is, of course, and you might have already learned about this before you started the simulation, is what Mimic Pro is also looking at as well as Google Ads, is the quality of your ad and your cost per click. So for now, let's ignore this bottom two bullet points. Let's focus on quality score and the maximum cost per click bid. So in the Mimic Pro simulation, you will have to bid for your keywords like in the real world, right? So you need to figure out which keyword are relevant to the ad group and the advertisements that you have created, and then you will need to bid for that particular keywords for your ad to show up when somebody types in that keyword. In terms of the quality score, now this is where you have to be creative, right? You have to make sure that the ad that you have created is relevant to the keyword that you have bought, right? So if you bought Nikon, then you need to make sure that your advertisement that you have created, like this advertisement, is relevant to the keyword. So here we can see that the keywords that you have bought are related to Apple, and the advertisement also mentions Apple, which makes it sure that the advertisement is relevant and advertisement is about Apple's and therefore is relevant to the keywords, right? So Google is keeping track of a lot of things. One of the biggest thing is it's keeping track of is ad relevance. So here is where you need to be very, very creative. You have your headlines that you can work with when you are creating the ad. So there is a headline, you can work with the headline, you can work with the description, you can work with the URL, and try to include keywords, try to include call to actions, try to include unique value propositions within that particular advertisement so that your ad performs better, right? And then later on in other rounds of the simulation, you will be required to create landing pages as well. And landing page experience is also one of the things that Google keeps track of when it's trying to determine which ad has a higher quality. So for round 1, round 2, and the initial rounds, it won't make a difference, but for later rounds when you have to create landing page, you need to make sure that your landing page also is very, very relevant to the advertisements that you have created. So let's go back to the simulation and see how it works. So here we see the simulation itself, right? So we review the product. This is the first is the scenario. So where we looked at the scenario, once we looked at the scenario, we can go through the product review. And in the first round, it's asking us to sell 3 products, right? So GoPro Hero 4, Canon Rebel, and Panasonic Lumix. Now in the first round, it's asking us to create 1 ad campaign and 3 ad groups to sell these 3 products. Because there are 3 products, we have to create 3 ads, and because we are creating 3 ads, each ad group can only have 1 ad. So we will have to create 3 ad groups. Now it's not like that you cannot create more ads for each ad group, but only one of the ad that you create will show up. So if you create 2 advertisements for an ad group, Google will randomly decide which of the 2 ad will show. Now this you can use for the simulation to do A/B testing, right? So if you create 2 ads within an ad group, and then you can figure out which ad is doing well. So if ad A is doing better than ad B, then you start focusing on ad A and do the things that worked for you, right? So here we are reviewing the product. We see that we are going to sell 3 products. Now later on in other rounds, you have a choice of which products you want to sell, and in that case you need to keep in mind that there are margins, right? So the price is there, the margin is there. So if your objective is to gain more profit, then you need to keep these margins in mind. If your objective is to increase revenue, then of course you need to focus on revenue. The profits is here. You need to understand if your objective is to generate more profit, then focus on the categories that are giving you more profit. Also keep in mind which sells more. Generally some products are really popular, like GoPro is much more popular, and many people will buy GoPro compared to a DSLR camera, right? So even though you might be getting a higher profit on a particular product, if it does not sell as much, then overall profit might be low. So those are the things that you need to keep in mind. So let's go into the research keyword. Now here is where you have to think about the keywords that might be relevant for you. Now here we see in the product reviews that there are Hero 4 and then Canon Rebel T6i and then Panasonic Lumix. Now you need to figure out which keywords might be relevant to these three products, right? Now you have to select your keywords here, but you can again come back and select the keywords later as well. So I'm not going to show you how you like what are the criteria you use to select the keywords, but I'll just briefly give you an idea. So if you are selling a GoPro Hero 4, then think about this as a consumer, right? So if you are a consumer and you want to buy a Hero 4, what are the things that you will be typing in the Google search? So you start searching for, you're thinking about buying a GoPro, and then how do you start your process? You go to Google and then you type in something, right? So what are the things that you generally might type is the thing that you are looking at. So maybe somebody might be typing 1080p video camera, maybe not, right? So they definitely will not be typing 35mm SLR camera when they are searching for a GoPro Hero, right? So maybe they are searching for 4K, they are searching for 4K cameras, right? So all of the things that you think are relevant. Of course, if somebody is searching for GoPro, they are not going to be typing 4K Samsung. So we're going to ignore the keywords that we think is not relevant, and then we are just going to focus on the keywords that we think is relevant. So action camera might be some of the things that are relevant, and the consumer might be typing, right? Action camera review might also be a relevant keyword, but generally know that when somebody is typing action camera review, they are not looking to buy a camera, they are just looking to review a camera, right? Now another way for you to look at all of this is to use this search function as well, right? In the search function, if I type in action camera, or if I type in action, then I see all the different all the relevant keywords that are particular to the action, right? So I may select a few of them. Now here another thing that you can look at is also the average monthly search, which keyword is being searched more. So this kind of shows you how popular your product is, right? So generally you want to buy keywords that have very high monthly searches, and then in competition it might be high, low, medium, it doesn't matter. But generally if the competition is high, your ad might not show up. If the competition is low, then it's good for you, right? So keep that in mind as well. So action, because we are trying to sell GoPro as well, let's take a look at GoPro, right? So here we can see GoPro average monthly search, GoPro 5, although it's GoPro 4 that we are going to sell. Maybe buying GoPro 5 is also good. High definition GoPro Hero. So we buy multiple keywords like this by researching. Now we are also selling Canon camera, right? So we also might look at the keywords that are relevant to the other product that we are selling, right? So you just look at the average monthly search, you look at competition, and then you look at all the keywords that you think are relevant, right? So for now, for this, I'm only going to select a few, right? So the research keyword has now a tick mark along with it. Now the next step is to go to SEO and website review. For this particular, I don't need to do anything because I don't need to set up the landing page. It's already set up. In future rounds, you will have to set up your landing page. For now, it's taken care of, right? So now the next step is to create an ad campaign. And as we said, within an account, there can be multiple campaigns. For this particular simulation, you will be creating multiple campaigns, but for the first round, you're only going to create one campaign. Now we know that our maximum budget is 5,000, and maybe I will spend a couple of $100 in the email campaign. So for now, I'm going to set this up at 4,700, right? So if 4,700 is my budget and the budget is set up at the campaign level, now if you start creating multiple campaigns, you will have to edit it, right? So when you start creating multiple campaigns, you will have to make sure that each campaign has enough money in it, but the total amount should not be more than 5,000 because your budget is 5,000, right? So now you have a campaign and your budget is set up at the campaign level. So you set up your budget. Now there you have to create ad groups, right? And how many ad groups should you be creating? 3, because you are selling 3 products, right? So within each campaign, so how now I'm going to name my ad group. Now I can name this whatever I want, but to make sure that it's easy for me to see what the ad group is all about, I will just name it GoPro, because this is the product that I'm going to sell, right? So the default bid is just basically, so these are all the keywords that I selected previously, right? So you can see I selected a few Canon and then I selected the GoPro keywords. So all of these are showing those keywords that I selected. And if you think this is not enough, then you can still click on the select keywords and then go back and select the keywords from the previous part that we selected. Now the default cost per click bid is, as you see here, there are suggested bids, right? So suggested bid is here, but what we want to do is if you are selecting multiple keywords, maybe you're not going to individually go in there and put in your bid. I would recommend that you do that, but if you don't want to do it, then you can just put a default cost per click bid, and then what that will do is whenever you select the keywords, it will give you your default bid here, right? So $1. Now the suggested bid is 60 cents and you're bidding $1. And now since this is GoPro, I would like to select all the keywords that are relevant to GoPro, right? 4K camera, 4K cameras, action camcorder, action camera. Now I don't want to select Canons because these are not relevant to the advertisement, right? The GoPro that I want to sell. Now all of those have been populated with the default bid of 1. Now we know that for some keywords the suggested bid is more than 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in there, and then you have to decide what number you want to put in here. And once you've run a campaign, then you know in the next round how you performed, right? So if you did not perform well, then maybe you should go back and take a look at changing your cost per click bid, right? So for now, I'm just going to do this randomly. So for this, I've selected the keywords. Now I need to write my advertisements, right? So to write my advertisements, first I need to select the destination URL of where this is going to go. Now when somebody clicks on my ad, where do I want them to go? Because this ad is about GoPro Hero 4, I want them to reach the GoPro Hero 4 product page. I don't want them to reach the category page, right? So GoPro Hero 4. Now you need to create the first headline. Now I am not going to write the first headline for you. So this is where you have to be creative, right? As we said, when you are creating the ad, you need to create the ad that is very relevant to the keywords that the consumers are buying. So consumers are searching for. So we looked at the keywords. So make your advertisement relevant to these keywords, right? And then also make sure that you put in call to action, unique value propositions, and write a wonderful description that entices the consumer to click on that ad, right? So for now, what I'm just going to do, GoPro, and then some random names, right? For me, but I'm pretty sure that you will be doing this very, very differently than how I am doing it. And I would highly recommend that you don't do this, right? So I'm creating the advertisements, right? So you create the ad. To do better, as I said, make your ad relevant to the keywords that you are buying, right? So now we need to create 3 ad groups. So this is one ad group. So now we need to create another ad group. Let's say this is for Canon because we are selling Canon. Right now for Canon, I want to select keywords that are relevant to Canon, and I would recommend that you select more keywords than less. So here you can see that because we selected the GoPro keywords for my previous ad groups, we can no longer select it here. The GoPro keywords are not visible here. That is because within one particular campaign, you cannot use the same keyword for multiple ad groups, right? So now you selected the keywords. Again, the same thing, because I want to sell Canon. I'll just do this. And these are my headlines. Save, right? Okay, default bid. I forgot to set up the default bid here. Okay, so default bid of $1. I save the ad. Now I have 2 ad groups, right? Now I need to create another ad group, but I won't be able to create an ad group because I have no keywords selected, right? So let's go and select a few keywords. The ones that we want is Panasonic. We are going to sell Panasonic, right? So P-A-N-A-S-O. Let's just select one keyword, right? So go back to ad campaign, and then in an ad campaign, now I want to create another ad group. The ad group name is the Panasonic. Default cost per click bid of $1, right? So I select this keyword, and as you see now, the Canon keywords are not visible because I already bought it, right? So for Panasonic, again, I create the headlines. As I said, make your ad relevant to the keywords that you are buying. Use call to actions, use unique value propositions to do better. So this is just showing you the mechanics, right? To do better, you need to do other things, as I already talked about. So now that we've done it, there is a tick mark in the ad campaign as well. Now we need to create an email campaign, right? So again, for your email, what's the name of your campaign? Let's just say camera. Email subject. Now I hope that you've already taken the email marketing class as well. So you know that the subject line is the most important part of an email, because if the subject line is not enticing enough and the consumers don't click on the subject line, they are not going to be opening your email, right? So the first step in an email campaign is to make sure that the consumers click on your subject, because that is how they go inside the email and everything follows. So make sure that your email subject is very, very creative and will entice the consumers to click on your email. So for now, because I'm focusing on the mechanics, these are all the things that I'm going to do, right? So you have 3 templates that you want to select any one of those campaigns, create something. If you want to choose image, right? If you want to choose an image, you need to pay for certain images, and as you remember, I put in $300 for the image, right? So $50 for there. I select another 150, let's say, and now it depends upon you what you want to do, right? Choose image. So let's again put in the select. Now you also need to create contents, right? Now, I'm pretty sure you're not going to do what I'm doing, but make sure that you follow all the things. And as we said in the email in email also, it's very, very important that you include unique value propositions, you include call to actions, you include keywords that are relevant to the consumer and why the consumer clicked on your email, and you make sure that each of the links that you have in the email lead to the proper place where the consumer wants to go, right? So the landing page should be properly set up for each of the links that you have here. So once you set up the email campaign, now the next step is budget review, where you see that I have $21 budget that is remaining, but that's okay. I have $4,700 that I set up for the ad campaign, and then $279 that I used up for the email campaign. Now I click continue. It asks me to review everything, right? And once I've reviewed this, if something is wrong, then it will not let me run the simulation. But everything seems to be in proper order, right? So you run the simulation and submit it. Now the simulation is being run. Now to look at the results and to figure out how you could do better, I have posted another video in this channel itself, so you can take a look at the other videos that I have posted in this channel, and that would give you an idea of some of the mistakes that many students make when they are running the simulation, right? So it's talking about how to analyze the results, and by analyzing the results, focusing on the things that will make you do better in your simulation.